Hi, Zoe.
Hello.
How are you?
I feel a bit better. I woke up this morning exhausted. Actually, I've had lots of inspiring, energizing conversations today. So I feel like I'm on a false high. Like tonight, I'm going to really crash. But in this moment, I feel good.
Good. I'm glad. Well, it's lovely to see you again since I think, was it kind of springtime when we last connected?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
when you very kindly invited me onto your incredible podcast.
Yeah, well, everyone loved that episode. And I think we had lots of motherkinders going through up front as well. So very exciting.
I was going to say, we were really moved by the number of people who got in touch and the number of motherkinders who signed up to be part of our bond. So thank you for helping us get our message out there. And I'm excited today to flip the script for you and you be on the other side and I get to ask you lots of questions.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
So I guess let's start at the start. Like, what's your story, Zoe? Who are you? What do you care about? What's the mission that you're on?
So I am the founder of Motherkind. So I really care about women and in particular mothers. And of course, that was unlocked when I became a mother myself. And the things that I think about all day, every day are how the world views motherhood and mothering and mothers. And the other side of that is how us as mothers, appreciating not everyone listening will be a mother, but how we feel about ourselves as mothers. Because I also see, whilst in the external world, we're viewed as it's not an important role, it's not a valued role, it's an unpaid role. I also see that mirrored in how mothers feel about ourselves, lack of confidence, worth, lack of belief, feeling guilty a lot, keeping ourselves small. So my absolute thing that I think about all day, every day, sometimes all night, is how do I change how mothers are viewed and how we view ourselves? And I do that in loads of different ways. The main way is through my podcast called the Motherkind Podcast, but I also run, like you, loads of coaching groups, loads of corporate interventions, loads of workshops, loads of press stuff to try and talk about that change that I want to see as much as I can around the constraints, of course, of my own family life. So I want to be really present for my business and also really present for my girls. So I don't work full time on it, which is amazing because I feel like my own case study, like how can you be an activist and how can you create change and how can you create amazing, sustainable businesses that have huge impact whilst not burning out, while not feeling pulled in a million directions? So it's amazing because I get to test lots of things, and then the things that work for me in my own life, I bring to my community as well.
And what is really working about that for you just now? I'd love to know something that feels like you've got it in a place that feels really aligned and connected, and then also something that still feels really hard and difficult that you just can't crack.
There's two things I have absolutely cracked. One is boundaries, particularly around work time and non-work time with my phone. So every day I pick the kids up from school and I am not working, and I say to myself, I am not working. So I don't answer work calls, I don't answer work emails, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm really present with them. Because it didn't used to be that way. And I would pick them up whilst, on an email. And I was like, what is the point of this? I might as well just work and have someone else pick them up. Because I'm not doing a great job on the email because someone, my little one wants a snack or whatever. And I'm not doing a great job with them. So I'm super boundaried. And then my team know at sort of 7:30, I'm back online. And I communicate that with clients and partners, even brand partners, like I am unavailable between these hours. If it's urgent, like speak to one of the team, and if the house is really on fire, like call. But I've got that really, really right. I've also got, and it's been a dance for a number of years, I've really got right the line between high standards for myself and for my business and letting go of control. Because for a long time I've always had people work with me. I've always understood that the way to have greater impact is to bring more people in to help you do that. So I've always sacrificed profit in the business for bringing in help and support. So, but for a long time, I was like, this is ridiculous because I am checking everything, telling everyone what to do. Like, I'm just making more work for myself. So I feel like I've really got that right in terms of setting a standard and expectation and then letting people run with their jobs and not checking, double checking.
How did you do that?
I think just being okay with things not being perfect. So, and remembering that, you know, if my intention is to help people in my business grow and step into their own, you know, lessons, and just like I had the privilege of doing, you know, when I was in corporate, I have to let them make mistakes. I think it's really hard when it's my face on the, you know, tin type thing, and that brought another layer into it. But I feel like getting the right people in, they know what's super important to me, and stuff goes out that I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way, but that's okay. Whereas in before, that wouldn't have been okay for me.
No, it's a lifelong.
It's really hard. I think it's coming back to, you know, where I'm super clear on my values for the business. And, you know, if something crosses one of those, like if I felt like one of the team were rude to someone in our community, or perhaps weren't recognizing, you know, something that was really important to that someone, or I felt there was language that wasn't right, I would jump on that. Don't get me wrong, but that's not stuff that I'm talking about. I'm talking about things where, you know, I would have remembered to ask that question or attach that file, or I wouldn't have posted that post like that. Stuff that is like, with it's not crossing a really important value boundary, and being able to let that go. I think the second part of your question is, what haven't I got right? I think I still frustrate myself because my ambition sometimes is way bigger than actually my risk appetite. So I'm in my head, I want to create this mass beast of a, you know, impactful business, a social business. But actually, when I think about my real risk appetite and where I am in my life, the season of my life is that I'm probably 10 years off that, because the season that I'm in is that I'm learning a lot, and I run this amazing thing, but that I'm also really present with my family. So sometimes that I haven't got that right, like that acceptance of that frustration, particularly when I see other big things happening. And I'm like, we should have been doing that. Well, and it's like, no, like that person is in a different season, or they're choosing to raise their family in a different way. You know, they're going all in on work. Yeah, so that's something that I'm continually battling with a bit.
But I think there's a lot of power in just recognizing that and having that conversation with yourself, and especially your team, I imagine, and that you can pull on that in those moments where you feel the envy or the look at them over there and why are we not there yet and we could have done that. And I think it's really helpful to have clarity on the why, but like why are we at the stage we're at, and like to connect that back to choices and values.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes it less painful.
Yeah, it does make it less painful. Yeah, because I think, you know, when I see people launch things, or, you know, new TV shows, I'm like, I wanted to be a part of that. I know what goes into that, and the truth of it is, had that opportunity crossed my desk, I probably would have said no, because I know that it would have taken me away from one of my core values, which is that at this season, you know, my kids are little, I want to be doing most of the school pickups and most of the school drop-offs. So yeah, it's just that tension. And I think you're dead right. I think it's about making peace with the tension, not expecting the tension not to be there, because I think it's always going to be there. I'm just like,
learning how
accept
to live
it,
with it.
learning how to live with that tension, that there's more that I want to do in the world, but at the moment I'm choosing, you know, I choose to be present with my family.
And that language really matters, right? With its intentional choice.
Yep. And it is. Yeah.
And I noticed you talked about, you know, your face being on the tin, if you like, which I feel like that's a whole other, we could both probably write a book about that, because I think it's such a thing. It's a privilege, it's an opportunity, it's a burden, it's a weight, it's hard. But I'm curious to hear a bit from you about your own confidence, and kind of what feels kind of present and live for you just now around your relationship with your with your visibility, with your platform, with your confidence, your power, your how you put yourself and your ideas into the world.
I mean, it's so interesting because I think you and I talked about this, my on our episode together on Motherkind, but my idea of confidence used to be very male and very externally focused. So how do I look to others? How do I appear? And I always thought I was very confident because I was like, I am able to easily stand up and present. I remember doing that when I was like 21 to like 2,000 people. You know, I felt that. Now I know that that version of confidence actually was arrogance masking insecurity. That's what it was for me. And confidence now for me is like very different than that. It's an internal. So I've gone from believing that my confidence was all about the external to believing that it's all about the internal. And it's really that now I define my confidence as I feel super secure with who I am. And that is such a nice place to be. It's been a lot of work, I'm not going to lie, that it's like an inner solidity. I feel solid on the inside. So I now feel really confident to be like, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to not speak in this big meeting because I feel like everyone's just throwing their idea in and it's willy waving and I'm not up for it. Like I'll stay very, very quiet sometimes. That is like true confidence to me. But it's taken a lot of unpacking to get there to that sense of worth. And yeah, and I think it links back to what we were saying, you know, about letting some things go. Like it's so tied in with that perfectionism for me that I now have that sense of worth and esteem that it's okay not to know, it's okay to make mistakes, all of that is okay, and I can still feel really confident in myself. So it's massively changed for me, my idea of what it is. It's so amazing when I think about my sort of 20 young 20 self. You know, people would have thought I was extremely confident. I was extremely insecure, masking it with arrogance and calling it confidence.
And this is why it's so fascinating to me. I think it's such a fascinating concept and idea, and part of it is that for so many of us for so long we just completely misunderstood. You know, I think everybody's got a version of the story you just told where it's like I used to think it was this, and now I realize it's this other thing. And you know, that's part of why I'm here and why I'm on this mission, is to get as many people as possible to go through that transition and realize that actually we're all being tricked by the patriarchy, by white supremacy, by all these oppressive forces, to think that confidence is this very fixed, narrow, extroverted, masculine, white way of being in the world, which of course we both know that it's not. And I wonder, is there an area of growth still for you in there, like something that you are stretching yourself with? Yeah,
I think what I've noticed is as my visibility is increasing, the adult part of me is super cool with that. Like I feel very ready for that and I want it. But there's still that young part of me, I would call it, you know, inner child. I do a lot of, you know, tending to that young part of me, because I believe that, it's not a belief, you know, I have studied that what happens to us in our younger years continues to impact our thoughts and our beliefs and our behaviors about ourselves. So as I get these bigger opportunities, you know, in TV and things like that keep, you know, are coming round, the young part of me freaks out.
What does she say?
Because my innate self, like who I am as a person, is quite loud, and I always have been, but that got squashed when I was in my, you know, sort of 4 to 10, really squashed, and then I got quite badly bullied in secondary school. So that young part of me is like, why on earth would you put your head above the parapet? Why on earth would you expose yourself? Because the young part of us is always just wanting safety, and the equation just got a bit mixed up because of those experiences, that in order to get safety, the way to do that is to be small. And that's what I did through school. I shrunk, and I wasn't there really anymore. I was surviving. And so that's really interesting to watch. It's fascinating because I've done quite a lot of work with loads of different professionals and loads of things that I've done. It's now got to the point where I can just observe it. It's not about saying to that young part of myself, "Oh, do one. You know, we're on this mission now." It's more like, I get that you feel really afraid. There's a part of you that feels really afraid. That makes sense given, you know, what happened and what that person said. And, you know, when you did that thing, that got shut down, and, you know, that makes total sense. But the adult part of us is going to take over now, and you are safe and you are loved. And yeah, I really like just sort of watching that dynamic within myself.
It's like telling her that she can come along.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, you know, a lot of women that I work with would listen to that. It's not safe.
Yeah.
And it might not be it's not always conscious. It's like, sometimes it can be a sabotaging, like declining something.
Or a gut instinct.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's complex, isn't it? That idea, because when is it trauma and when is it gut instinct? Think about that a lot as well. But yeah, it can look like sabotaging yourself to stay small and safe. Or it can look like as overt as mine is, where it's literally like, I'm freaking out. So it's really freeing to know that the adult you can step in. And sometimes I joke, I mean, it sounds a bit woo, but sometimes I say I've got 3 kids. I've got my 2 girls, and then I've got my inner child. Because it genuinely feels like that sometimes. I'm having to, like, you know, parent all of us, because she was quite damaged growing up. So yeah, that's still something that's very alive and well for me.
Yeah. Have you read Biola Davis's new memoir?
I haven't yet.
Because that's a strong theme in that book, is her relationship with her younger self that's still part of her, like incredibly moving and powerful. So I think you'd like it.
I definitely would.
Yeah. And it's, I guess, the thing that both of our work and our missions are we're connected by this idea of confidence, because I know that it comes up in a lot of the work that you do with mothers individually, and a lot of the incredible guests that come on the Motherkind, you know, whether that's mental health experts, relationship experts, parenting experts. This idea of confidence always crops up, and I'm curious to hear from you. Why do you think it is that mothering has such a colossal, often negative impact on our confidence? Like, we know that fewer than 1 in 5 women feel confident to go back to work after maternity leave. We know that almost half of mothers right now are feeling forced to return from maternity leave early due to the cost of living crisis. You know, there's so many statistics that could paint really a very, very bleak picture. And I'd love to just hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. And it's something that I think about all the time as well, and something that I really wish was different, which is, you know, part of what drives me, of course. So I think like anything, this is so multi-layered, and you can't answer a question like this without bringing generalizations. So I apologize in advance for my generalizations, which of course will be there. But what I see in general is that this word that I learned about as part of my research and my work into motherhood is this word matrescence. And what that word means, if you haven't heard of it, is that it's just like adolescence, where we know there's a time in a young person's life where they go from, you know, one place, childhood, into adulthood, and we expect that to be a really rocky time. We know that their brain changes, we expect their mood to change, we know that their identity gets thrown up in the air, and they often feel that lack of confidence, and society generally like supports and accepts that. Is exactly the same for motherhood. So it's an anthropological term that means the becoming of a mother, and it's just the same in that our brain actually changes when we become a mother. Our hormones clearly change and affect our moods. You know, we're only just really starting to understand that. There's some new research come out which is just fascinating about how much that actually impacts us as mothers. And on every level, nothing feels the same anymore. That's this journey of Matrescence. And I think, I was chatting before about confidence is like that inner solidity. Like for me, it means that inner worth and sense of who I am. That, I mean, my experience was that just got lobbed up in the air when I became a mother. It's almost like, those shifting tectonic plates. That's how it feels. Like your relationship's not the same. Your relationship to your body is not the same. Your time autonomy is never going to be the same again. It is not your time anymore. You have, this being who takes all your time. Your brain has changed. How you feel about your friendships has changed. Everything changes.
It really is just wild.
It's insane. And we don't talk about it. And employers don't recognize it. Like, oh, come for a kit day. You'll be fine. It's unbelievable. This is what I mean about when we talk about how the world sees mothers. Like, no idea what actually goes on and on emotional, physical, hormonal, even spiritual level when you go through that massive transition into motherhood. So I think that's one reason. I mean, it's like, it's to be expected that you don't feel confident anymore, because if you'd found it in your previous self, you now have to find it again with, by the way, no time to do that.
Very little sleep.
Very
so
little sleep.
Your brain is
mushed.
Not in a good place.
It's mushed. And, I think as well, what can really impact that feeling of lack of confidence is, perhaps before you were a mother, you might have seen mothers coming in, showing off the baby, and you might have seen eye rolls from your male managers. Or you might have seen, someone on your team leaving at 5, and you might have seen them walk out the door to go and do nursery pickup, and you might have seen colleagues bitching, complaining, moaning, laughing, belittling. You might have seen all those sort of, I wouldn't even call them micro behaviors, just overt displays of
discrimination.
Just discrimination of mothers in the workforce. And I think then when we then go through that, this was my experience. Like, I was very naive to how it actually felt to be a mother in the workforce. I feel like I was a terrible manager when I was young and I was given a team to manage. I had mothers in that team. I had no idea of what their experience was. So I feel like then when you're thinking about going back into the workplace, all those, your body remembers those. You remember those somatically, you also remember those consciously. And I think that can have a huge impact, because you're thinking, okay, I know that that's the environment I'm going into. Probably, you might be lucky, you might not have that environment in your work, but most likely you're going into that sort of environment. I also feel shattered into a million different pieces. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. I'm exhausted. And I now have to go and see if I can prove myself in this role, but with new boundaries that I've never had to enforce before, such as leaving at a certain time, such as not being able to work late because some clients said that they need something urgently. So I feel like that, pre-motherhood, so many clients that I speak to would do behaviors that would enable them to operate in a really toxic system, often if it's corporate. And motherhood takes that away from you, because if you said you're leaving at 5, you have to. You cannot be in that sort of people pleasery. You can't be working all hours because you want to please your boss, because you've got to get the kids to bed and you're exhausted. And so I think that is another massive reason why it's such a wobbly time, because you're like, I feel different. I know this environment isn't going to feel that friendly to me, even though they might say they are. Energetically, it might not feel it. And I've now got to enforce all these new ways of working for myself whilst feeling
depleted.
I'm completely depleted. It's almost like impossible to feel confident under those circumstances. Like, there are definitely things that you can do, but I think the other thing, I don't know if you've seen this, is that when women become mothers, wherever they are, I feel like it often, one of the things that happens in our brain is that the center of our brain responsible for empathy and compassion gets bigger. That's what enables us to really unlock the caring, nurturing side of us. So I think of that as like, we go from thinking about me to we. And I think social issues tend to impact us more than they had before. Mothers will say to me, I never used to cry at, the news or ads, and I can't stop thinking about these images, that's all because of that part of the brain has changed. And often I feel like mothers then go with this change in how they view the world, and then they go back into a job, and often they're like, this just doesn't sit with me anymore.
Yeah, I think it's also for many women, becoming a mother is that first real moment in their life where they genuinely experience oppression and discrimination.
Yeah.
And I think that, of course, predominantly white women, it can be this wake up moment of, holy shit, wait a minute. The bus, I mean, I remember so vividly, buses just kept driving past me.
Yeah.
And I was standing on the side of the road with tears running down my face, this tiny baby.
Yeah.
And I called my partner, I couldn't even talk to say, the bus keeps driving past me. I didn't know that there was a rule of only 4 buggies were allowed on the bus.
Yeah.
How would I know that? Nobody's ever told me that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's a fairly safe, harm-free example. You know, we both know that those moments can be really harmful and dangerous and impactful in a negative way. And I think the other thing, like you mentioned, being totally naive when you led a team and you had mothers as part of your team, and how part of what made it difficult for you was just this feeling like the ground had been taken from underneath your feet. And I think there is I do not think it's an accident that women are so completely in the dark around the realities of pregnancy and birth and the first year of mothering. Like, I think that is a very intentional, institutional decision, because it's the way I always think about it. If men had babies, a lot of what we've just talked about would not be new information and would not be a surprise, because there would be decades of study, there would be clinical trials, there would be solutions, there would be investment, there would be whole infrastructures to cater for these new changes.
Yeah, of course I would, yeah.
And I think that's the part that kind of pains me the most and keeps me up at night, because I think, and obviously moving here, and now I've lived in Sweden for 2 years. And of course, I don't work for a Swedish company. I mean, both my partner work for my company, but I'm around people and live in a culture where, for example, they have what they call VAB days, which means if your kid is sick, you just send a message saying, I'm having a VAB day, and you still get paid for that day. And it doesn't matter what's happening at work that day, you know, any other context. It's like, oh, Zoe's on VAB today. There's nobody would ever bat an eyelid. And it's small examples of, you know, as you say, it's like those micro moments that you absorb as you grow up, teaching you this is what this society will accept and what it will not accept.
Yep.
You know, I think Sweden definitely does not get all things right, and it's not a perfect country, but I think it does a lot of that stuff better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so challenging, isn't it? Thinking about, you know, and you talk about this amazingly, that it's not about putting the burden to feel more confident returning to work onto us as the mothers. I think a massive part of this is understanding that landscape. And as you say, it is atrocious that we do not understand that landscape, and employers don't. They just don't. I mean, I'm always pitching workshop, you know, it's not a receptive audience.
Yeah, I was going to say, they are not biting your hand.
Not a receptive audience,
no,
because they're like,
they don't want to pay for it.
No, they don't care. Often. That's not all companies. That's definitely not all. Yeah. So it's you know, I always think about it's 2 things, isn't it? It's about what we can do as individuals to empower ourselves within a really broken system, but remembering that it's not our fault. Exactly. So I think it's hard, but it's holding those 2 truths is how I think and talk about it.
Yeah. And what the consequence of what we're describing, as we kind of checked in before we started our conversation today, is that we both lead communities that are full of women who are mothering, caring, and are just completely depleted, feeling they don't have any more to give. Like they're struggling. And, now we have the cost of living crisis. We have the childcare cost crisis. Obviously this is specific to the UK, but there's themes of this happening across Europe. And I wonder, what your message would be for those women. I know Motherkind is a source of knowledge and hope and inspiration for so many of them. So I wonder what your message would be to those who are feeling like, you know what, I just need to get my head down and survive.
Yeah. And I think, the thing that I see mothers doing time and time and time again is blame themselves. So that's the first thing I would say. Do not be thinking that you are doing it wrong, or if only I could just ... then it would. Like, really try and resist that urge within yourself to take on board, broken systems and own them as some personal failing. Like, really try and establish that boundary between what is yours and what is not yours. 99% not yours. Yes, there's some tweaking that we could do in the 1% around how you're managing your own personal boundaries and your own personal energy, and what you're doing around keeping yourself sort of spiritually, mentally as fit as you can within these constraints. That's the 1% that I'm talking about. And I think so often we get it that wrong way round. So that's the first thing I would say, is that hold that boundary for yourself. It's really, really, really important, because the moment we start blaming ourselves, it's harder to access the internal resources that we need anyway. So it's a lose-lose. And the other thing I'd say is, you talked about survival, and I think there's such a place for knowing what mode we are in, whether we're in survival or whether we're in, thriving. We're trying to raise the baseline. And I think that picture that you described, and many women in my community are in survival, and my response to that is, okay, be in survival.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what we have to do. Sometimes we have to put on the life jacket, know that it's going to cost us down the line, and we just have to survive. And if we can accept that, not accept what's going on around us, but accept that is the mode that we are in, and we are in survival mode, I think it can unlock compassion. And I think that's when you start to think about, okay, I'm not going to listen to that inspirational podcast about how to earn £1 million in 6 months, because actually I'm in survival mode. I'm not going to beat myself up for not getting to that yoga class that I know actually makes me feel great, because I am in survival mode. My basic needs right now are sleep, water, the most nutritious food as I can get my hands on, and the same for my kids. That's it. That's where I'm going to put my time, energy, effort, and focus. I'm not going to read that book about even, increasing my confidence. Not where I'm at, not where I'm at right now. Where I'm at right now is in survival. What are the resources that could help me while I'm in this place? And you don't hear many, like I'm also a coach, you don't hear many coaches talking about that. They're always like, raise the baseline, how can you improve? But I think one of the ways to actually move quicker out of that place is to accept that you're in it. And to just know that it is hard and it is shit, and I'm sorry you're there, and you're sorry you're there. But if that's where you're at, then that's where you're at. Because so often we can be in that place, but also be beating ourselves up that we're not in another place.
Yeah, I think your point about self-compassion is the key for me. It's like the narrative that you tell yourself around where you're at and what phase you're in, or what season you're in, or what mode you're in. The story you tell yourself is so vital. And I think framing it as this is where I am right now and it's not forever.
No,
you know,
it's not forever.
immediately make space for patience, kindness. And I think also it makes me think about community. You know, I think I talk a lot about the role that community plays in confidence. And I think part of what is compounding the problem that we're describing is isolation and loneliness and disconnection from friends and family. You know, that's also something that comes with being, especially if you're a new mum or you're becoming a mum for the first time, it can have a huge impact on your friendships.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, psychologists would say part of that survival, one of our core needs for survival is connection, community. They don't see that as like a nice to have, because it's not. You know, it's a core need, connection, community, just the same as, you know, shelter and food and water.
Yeah. So I would say, you know, whether it's the Motherkind community, the Bond community, or, you know, your next door neighbour or the school mums or your best friend that you keep forgetting to text back, you know, connect with people, be the one to make the first move. You know, I think sometimes we overthink. When you're in that place, you can also get quite negative, right? It's easy to think the worst. And I think it's most of the time, if not all of the time, people want to hear from you, and you are loved and you do matter.
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because when you're in that place, the energy that it takes to you know, send a message or reach out might feel like more than you've got. But I think that is one example where you will get back. That will fill up. It will refill more than it takes you to give it out. So it's worth sort of getting over that resistance. And particularly around mental health, we know the interplay with isolation and mental health and how they're so closely linked. So it's, you know, it's just in a tiny way, just if you can shift forward, like you say, and connect, you know, even virtually. I think that's helpful.
And how do you see the world changing so when Motherkind played the pivotal role in changing how society sees mothers and upfront support a million women to reframe and re-understand their confidence, how would the world be different from your point of view?
I think workplaces would change. Just as you were describing, you know, imagine if, you know, this was tended for, cared for, this transition, you know, that workplaces were actually designed to work around mothers and working families, as opposed to just, you know, lip service. And I think marriages would change.
I'm still thinking about the stat of how long men spend on the toilet. Did you see that one?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just totally unsurprising, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, I think marriages would change. I feel like the domestic division of work at home would change very quickly if more women and mothers knew their worth, knew how to advocate for their needs, knew how to hold boundaries, and knew their worth, and had the confidence to know that, you know, if a setup isn't working for them, they can change it. I definitely think we'd see that change. I think we'd see the next generation change. You know, we know that children don't really listen to what we tell them. They listen to...
They don't?
Yeah. It's no bombshell, is it? They model what they see. They just copy what we see. So if we think about it, you know, if we as women and mothers that are modeling to the next generation what it means to be a woman and a mother, you would hope that our organizations would become redundant at some point. Because those children would just naturally advocate for their needs. They would naturally, you know, spot discrimination, call it out, because they've seen us doing that. You know, what I see lots of, you know, beautiful stories and books being read to children about this, but the parents are not actually enacting it. They're not doing it. So that's actually quite confusing to children, to have one message and not seeing it being lived. So I think that would change. I think schools would change. I think it would be an unbelievable place to live, wouldn't it?
Well, let's keep going. I believe we can do it. together with all the hundreds and thousands of other amazing people and teams and organizations in the world who are also working hard to make the world a better place for mothers and carers. So thank you so much for this conversation, Zoe.
No, you're welcome. It's beautiful to connect.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with folks before we say goodbye?
Not really, other than you know, a lot of what we've talked about, which is that if you're finding it hard, it's not a failing for you, it's because it is really hard. And please remember that. Please don't take, you know, a failing of a broken system into your own heart, because you need that boundary. You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you.
Yes, +1 to that. All right, well, thank you so much. Keep up the awesome work, and I'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.